It's great to be here. It's nice to see you all again. And just to remind you that for some time in the future, we're going to set up another visit to the Royal Ontario Museum for you. But today we have something else to do, and I always get a little bit upset coming in to do something like this because we don't have kinetic imagery. It might be better to actually see this on television. But remember, what you're going to do, how should we put this? How many of you brushed your teeth today? You all brushed your teeth. How many of you are involved in sports at school? Okay. You know, you tell me, why do you brush your teeth?
Because you have to keep your teeth clean so you don't get cavities.
Okay, good enough. Why do you exercise in sports? If you're playing,
you don't
yes.
get fat. To keep you healthy.
To keep you healthy. And what did you say?
To not be fat.
So you don't get fat. Okay. The fact is that whatever you're doing requires practice. So you brush your teeth in the morning so that your teeth will be clean, you'll be healthier. Last time I was here, someone said that, oh, this is boring. Well, I thought that's right, it was boring because I gave you a lot of information, maybe too much. The thing about looking at icons is that icons communicate directly, immediately. But we're going to try to learn more about icons because it's important that as Orthodox Christians, you be able to recognize the icons in your own church. And when we look at these things, in a sense it's like brushing our teeth are practicing for sports. The more we work, the more we train, the more we study, the wiser, the smarter, the better we're going to be. There is an old saying that it is a poor teacher who is not surpassed by his students. And here we want every single one of you to end up better educated, smarter, more intelligent than someone like me who's talking to you now. Now, I have a question for you. Who is Mary? Yes?
The mother of Jesus.
The mother of Jesus. Is she right? Is she wrong? You all agree she's the mother of Jesus? You all know that. Mary is the mother of Jesus. Okay, we're just going to move a little bit ahead. This is Mary who was shown enthroned. This is a very early icon of Mary. Why is Mary important to us? Why should we bother with her at all? Yes? Yeah, you.
Because like she's one of the people that is in heaven, like very important people.
Yeah, she's very important, but why is she important? Give me the reason. Yes?
Because she's the mother of God.
Oh, you got it! My gosh, you're right at the end of the lecture now. Mary is, say that again, Mary is the...
Mother of God.
Yes, and what's the Russian word for mother of God? Do you know? По-русски. Bogorodica. Okay, here is a depiction of Mary, and who's this on her lap?
Jesus.
That's Jesus, right. This is a very, very early icon. If you go into the Bible, you can actually read the whole story about Mary and the birth of Jesus, but when you look at the icon, the whole story is right there, right in front of you. You don't need to worry about hundreds and hundreds of words, and you don't need to worry about someone like me boring you to tears by going blah, 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 blah. The icon tells you what it is. These figures are important. Oh, how can you tell that they're important? Yes?
Maybe because they have that circle around their head.
And what do we call that circle around their head? What do we call the circle around the head? Do you know what this is called? Po-angielski. It's a halo. And when you see a halo, you know that the person is important. You know that they are actually of importance, both in terms of a life on earth and a life in heaven. Now, this is a very important detail. And you've already answered the question, who is Mary? You said the Mother of God. That is the best answer that anyone can give in an Orthodox church. How do we know she's the Mother of God? Well, you see this strange little thing up here? It's actually a hand. And you can see that coming from the hand, there are rays of light. And the rays of light are shining down on Mary. Whose hand do you think this is? Yes?
God's.
It's God's hand. Why don't we see the whole image of God? Why don't we see God as a person? Yes?
Because it's God, you can't see him because...
Ah, you got it. That's it.
He's
You,
too big and,
what was that again?
Because you can't see him since he invented the earth.
That's a very good answer. We cannot see God. It's a very important point to remember in your Orthodox faith. We cannot see God, but we can see, or we have seen his Son. So in icons, in really early Orthodox icons, we never see God shown as a person. We just see a hand. And that's to remind us that God is unseen. Okay, we asked you the question, and you're doing extraordinarily well. Congratulations. She's the mother of Jesus. Who is Jesus? Jesus has two natures. He's both human and divine. Yes? Go ahead.
He's the Son of God.
He is Son of God. Yes. And what were you going to say?
Well, is he a half-blood?
Is he a what?
Is he a half-blood?
Yes.
It's from these type of series. Basically, it's there's like the Greek gods, and their children are known as half-bloods.
This is a very difficult concept for people to understand, but it's very important for us to have a real sense of who Jesus is. The church teaches that he is both God and man in one person. So if he is God, if he is the Son of God, and if he is God, and if he is the Son of Mary, he's the Son of Mary, and Mary is the Mother of God. That was a great answer, and you're going to see more relating to the whole idea of Mary as the Mother of God when we look at some icons. Sometimes she's called the Virgin Mary, but that really is a Western tradition. In the East, it's a little different. We prefer the words Mother of God. She's also called Our Lady, and that will be important as we see in a few minutes. She's sometimes called the New Eve. She's a symbol of the church. Mary represents the whole church. She represents all of us. But here is the key. You didn't see this lecture before, did you? You knew this already. She is the Mother of God, Theotokos, or Theotokos in Greek, and in Russian, Bogorodica. And her status was actually proclaimed at church councils. Don't worry about that. We'll get into that in about another 5 years. What's this? This is your church. This is our church. When you come into church, remember that the building itself represents heaven. This, in a sense, is your true home. This is the place where you should feel welcome. This is the place where you really should feel at home. And this is the place where you should have a sense of being together, really as part of a family. You all know one another, don't you? You're all friends. You all like one another. There are... You're not so sure, are you? I'm not sure. There are two basic ideas in all of Christianity. Love God, love your neighbor. And you cannot claim to love God, whom you have not seen, if you cannot love your neighbor, whom you have seen. And if you're a real cynic, you'd say, well, you haven't met my neighbor. But the thing is to love God and to love your neighbor. And those are the things that we learn here at Christ the Savior. So this is our church. This is our church, and it represents heaven. It represents all sorts of things. And we're going to get into that in just a minute. Now, we're going to move on to the next illustration. You know what this is. Well, what is this called, by the way, this thing up at the front of the church? Yes? You don't know? Yes?
Is it an altar?
Is it a what?
Altar.
No, it's called an iconostasis, or an iconostase. And it's called an iconostasis because it's a screen that has icons. Now we're going to look at the left side here. Who is this? Yes?
Mother of God.
It's the Mother of God. And you'll notice it's a very special type of the Mother of God known as Kazanskaya, or the Kazan Mother of God. Why do we have this image of the Kazan icon as opposed to some other icon of the Mother of God? Why do you think? These are two very important Russian icons of the Mother of God. And they are very, very closely associated with the people of Russia, with Ukraine and Russia. Don't forget that Christianity first came to what we would now call Russia and Ukraine from Greece. And who was the person who was baptized into the Christian faith and converted all of his people? Yes?
Vladimir?
Oh, excellent. Хорошо. Vladimir. Grand Prince Vladimir. So, here are two icons. the Kazan Mother of God. And the Kazan icon is really interesting because all of these icons have amazing stories behind them. The Kazan icon was in the city of Kazan, and some of these icons get their names from cities where they were found. Kazan was overrun by the enemies of Russia, but later the Russians liberated the city of Kazan, and they took this icon from Kazan with them, and the Kazan icon is one of the most important symbols of the Russian people and of the Russian faith. So, if you could recognize a Kazan icon, you're doing very well. What about this one here? This is the Smolensk Mother of God, obviously named after Smolensk. These are two very important icons, very important to the history and the people of Russia. But you'll notice this curious word up here. It's hodigitria. How many of you have never heard that word or seen it before? Good. Nothing like honesty. Hodigitria is a Greek word, and it literally means she who points the way. Who is she? Mary. She points the way. What way is she pointing to? Well, you notice here that Mary is gesturing with her hand. She's actually introducing her child, the Christ child, Jesus, to us. And what the icon says is, my son is the important figure here because he is the Son of the living God. Jesus is God and man. The kid's interesting. The kid's important. This is a very interesting type of icon. We're going to show you two basic types. One which is very formal, which simply says, this is the child. He's presented to you. It's almost as if you have walked into a very important room, say the room of a king, and the king is on his throne. It's actually the lap or the arm of the Bogorodice, of the Mother of God. And she's presenting him to you, saying, this is my son. This is my child. And again, the Kazan Mother of God, the Smolensk Mother of God are very closely associated with Russia, and that's why on the Iconostasis we have the Kazan icon of God. Now, you're going to be tested on this at some point. We'll talk about that later. Now, the Kazan Mother of God may have been painted by different iconographers or written by different iconographers at different times, but it doesn't matter when the icon is made. The Kazan icons always follow a basic pattern, and they show the child who is standing. And what's the child doing with his hand? Yes?
Pointing to his mother.
But you know, oh, actually, that's a very interesting point. Yeah, well, that's good for you. But look at how many fingers. What's he doing with? It's like this, isn't it? Why is he pointing with his two fingers? He's actually blessing you, but these two fingers mean Jesus as God and man. What about the thumb and the other two fingers? Yes? What do they mean?
They mean like
Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. It's the Trinity. Okay, let's go on to the next one. You notice there's writing on them. Oh, this is another example of the Smolensk Mother of God. You can always recognize the different types. It doesn't matter when they were made or where they were made. The Kazan icon always has the same basic form, and the Smolensk icon always has the same form. And again, we see Mary, who is gesturing towards her child. This is my son. And the child is actually holding something in his hand. What do you think he's holding? Yes?
Like a scroll or something?
Oh, very good. It's a scroll. Well done. Why would the child have a scroll in his hand? What does a scroll mean? Yes?
it's a type of paper that's rolled up and has writing.
That's true, but why? Why is he holding a scroll, a parchment or a paper with words on it? Why do you think? Yes?
Because it has the Bible or something on it.
Very good. The scroll represents Scripture, and the scroll represents revelation, and the scroll is going to tell us who Jesus is, why he's here. The idea of the scroll actually comes out of the early part of the Bible that we call the Old Testament, but which in Judaism is called the Tanakh, the Torah and the books of the prophets and so on. So you begin to realize that you can always tell a Smolensk icon or a Kazan icon from other icons, but behind every icon there is a whole multitude of meanings. You don't just get one meaning out of it. So if you think, well, it's boring, I don't care. The fact is that every icon has a very rich and detailed story to tell you, and when you read about the icons, you will have the most fascinating experiences of an entire life. Now, how many of you have never seen this icon? How many of you think you have seen it? Where did you see it? Yes?
In Russia.
Ah, you've seen one of these icons in Russia. How many of you came to the Royal Ontario Museum when we had our visit there? Did you see this icon then? Oh, yes, you did. This is an icon in the Royal Ontario Museum. Now, it's called the Tikvin Mother of God. It's also known as a Podagitria icon because, again, Mary is pointing to the child. But here's something very interesting about it. What do you see here? You see that detail? It's a bare foot. The child has his legs crossed. And you can sometimes tell what type of icon you're looking at by details such as a little foot or the position of a hand, whether the head is looking directly at you, whether it's inclined in one way or another. So these are all the ways in which, if you really have good eyes, and if you really pay attention, you can actually work out for yourselves what type of icon you're looking at. And these are things you can learn on your own. Don't rely on someone else to tell you or give you the answers. These are things to look for yourselves. You can go onto Google and find all these types. Now, you notice the letters here. These are actually Greek. They're not Russian. And you'll notice the curious letters here over the head of the child. Well, this is an abbreviation for meta, and this is an abbreviation for theon. And those are Greek words which mean the Mother of God. So you got the answer right at the very beginning, before we even really started the lecture. So whenever you see an icon with these letters, abbreviation for meta, abbreviation for theon, you're seeing an abbreviation for the Mother of God. That's why we are talking about all these icons as icons of the Mother of God. And the letters that you see here, which are represented there, are they're a Greek abbreviation for the name of Jesus Christos, Jesus Christ. Okay, now here we have a child. We know that this is a divine child because he has a halo, and the halo has a cross in it. And there are three letters, 1, 2, 3, and they are an abbreviation for He Who Is. So when you see these letters, that is an abbreviation for the saying He Who Is. There's another Tikvin icon. Now you get to know the types better. If we look at several different icons of the same type, they may have been painted at different times, they may have additions, there may be saints on the borders, but you'll notice they all have the same features. The mother is pointing to the child, and you notice again the detail of the bare foot. Again, Mater, Theon, Jesus Christos, He Who Is. Now, how many of you have heard of the Vladimir icon of God? How many of you have not heard of the Vladimir icon of God? Okay, I love this because the only way you are ever going to learn anything is by knowing what you don't know. So if someone asks you in class, what is this or what is that, and you don't know, never, ever, ever be afraid to put up your hand and say, I don't know. That's how you learn. You learn by being honest and by realizing, how old are you, by the way? How old are you?
8. I'm just like turning 8.
You're turning 8. And how about yourself? You're 10. How about you?
11.
You're 11. And how about you? 11? Belt it out so I can hear it. Never be afraid to let your voice sound. You're 11. Say it. Be proud of it. How about yourself? You're 12 yourself. Okay. You are going through life stage by stage, year by year, and I would imagine at the age of 12, you may know more than someone who was 6 or 7. Every year you learn more. Every year you add to your own knowledge. You become wiser and better educated. And the thing is, the more you know, the more you're going to enjoy life. So the Vladimir, Mother of God, is actually named after, who do you think? Can you think of a, yes?
I think it's the one that baptized and turned Russia into like the Christian.
You are amazing. You're absolutely right. I hope you're all going to go to university. And realize you are a very intelligent group of people. And you'll notice that when we are talking with you about things like icons, we're not going to talk down to you. We don't address you as if you're children. We talk to you like adults. That's out of respect for each and every one of you, and also to realize the potential that each and every one of you has as a person. Question, this is a little sidetrack, but it's actually relevant. When there is a liturgy here, what does the deacon or the priest do with incense? He walks around and he incenses all of the icons, doesn't he? But he does something else. He doesn't just incense the icons, he incenses every one of you, doesn't he? He has the incense and he will wave the incense in your direction. Do you know why? Yes.
Okay, so it can like bless you or something?
Yeah, it is a blessing, but it's more than that. It's a recognition of potential in each of every one of you. It is a recognition that each and every one of you, even when you're yawning, has the potential to become a saint. Even when you're feeling tired and think, oh, I wish I were home in bed, I wish I were watching television. Every one of you has the potential, the presence of the Holy Spirit within you to become, in a sense, a saint in your own lives. Well, the Vladimir, Mother of God, was in fact, according to tradition, taken back to Kiev by Vladimir the Great. And that's the same Vladimir the Great who was baptized in 988 and who was responsible for the conversion of Kievan Rus to the faith of the Eastern Roman Empire, the Byzantine Empire, or the Greek Empire. But you notice what's different about this icon? You see something here that, in fact, we have not seen in the icons we've been looking at. Yes?
It feels like it's made out of a couple of pieces.
That's one thing, but what about the pose of the figures? Yes?
The son, instead of like going into her arms, he's actually like close to her face, like sort of like hugging her or something.
You got it. That's it. Did you hear that? The difference is that the child here is actually shown as if he's hugging his mother. You all have mothers, I presume?
Yeah.
Do you love your mothers?
Yes.
Do your mothers love you?
Yes.
Okay. When we were looking at the Hodegitre icons, there is really no sense of emotion in them. But now we get to a different type of icon, and these are the types of icons that are really exciting because they tell us about the natural, tender relationship between a mother and a child. This is your mother. Think of yourselves as having a relationship with your mother and the relationship that your mother has with you, the relationship that you have with your parents. And this is a very different and very special type of icon because instead of simply saying, this is my child, he's important. Here, the emphasis is on loving tenderness. And here what the icon tells you is that Mary loves her child. And the child loves his mother. So this is an icon that should be very, very important to each and every one of you because when you look at the icon, you can see in it your own relationships with your own mother. Now, why is this important? Sorry? And your father. Well, in this case, we're dealing with, in a sense, a stepfather named Joseph, but of course, the father of Jesus is God. Now, the relationship between the mother and the child here is important for us because we're reminded that Jesus was a real person and that he was a child. He was an infant, just like you. And did you cry a lot when you were a child? You did. Mm-hmm. Did you soil your diapers when you were a child?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what it means to be a real child. We're talking about real children, and we're talking about the real love of a real mother to a real child. And that's what makes the particular icons here important. We're going to look at a few examples of the so-called Eliousa type of icon. And Eliousa is a Greek word which actually means loving tenderness. It means the mother of loving tenderness. What do we say about God? We always refer to God as a God of loving kindness. This is a reminder again that we are to love one another. Now here's another example of the Vladimir Mother of God. It has the same composition, and one of the things you'll very often see is the child's left hand coming around the neck of the mother. Oh, she's also gesturing with her hands. She's saying, yes, this is my child, I love my child, but this child is someone that you should actually get to know. Get to know Jesus. I want to know Jesus. That's a very important question. Now, this icon is actually covered with a metal ground. Does anybody know the name of this type of metal frame or ground on an icon? How many of you don't know? I like the honesty of you. It's oklad. And an oklad is a cover. Now, you'll notice the background here is different from the icon you've just seen, but the composition is the same. And notice the way the child nestles its cheek against the mother and the way the mother nestles the cheek against the child. This is another example of the Vladimir Mother of God. It's in not a very good condition, but you see the form is always the same. Yeah.
In Russian, this type of icons is called umilение.
Umilение, absolutely. Umilение, good Russian word, and umilение has the same idea of the Mother of God, of loving kindness or loving tenderness. Большое спасибо. Now we're going to look at another one, and this is the Fedorovskaya icon, and it's important for one very basic reason. Its association with the Romanov dynasty. The original icon was taken to Yaroslavl. Where is Yaroslavl? Have you heard of Yaroslavl? Does the name mean anything to you? How about those of you? We've got someone in the back. How many of you have never heard of Yaroslavl? Yaroslavl is a very important city, and if you take a boat trip from Moscow, to Petersburg, St. Petersburg, Yaroslavl is one of the places you visit. There's a monastery there, and the original Fedorovskaya Mother of God icon was kept in Yaroslavl. And Prince Michael, the first Romanov Tsar, was at the monastery, and it's said that he actually prayed in front of the icon before he was elected as the first Romanov Tsar. Now, the Fedorovskaya icon is important for many reasons, but one of them is its association with the Romanov family. And these icons play a special part of the history of the Romanov family right down to the time of the Revolution, 1917, 1918. This icon belonged to the Tsaritsa Alexandra Fedorovna. Who was she? Who was Alexandra Fedorovna? How many of you don't know? Good honest answer. Remember, don't be afraid of saying you don't know. She was the wife of Nicholas II, the last Tsar. She actually was a foreigner. The Russians didn't like her very much, but she became very devoted to all aspects of the Orthodox Church. And in her bedroom at the Alexander Palace at Tsarskoye Selo, she actually had examples of the Fedorovskaya Mother of God. You'll notice the hand that comes around here. You'll notice the position of the hand here. Again, we have something that's left over from the Hodogitria type. She's actually pointing to the child as well. Next icon. There's another one of the same type. And once again, we've already learned this. Meter Theon, Mother of God, Jesus Christos, He who is. You can put all these pieces together. It's like putting together a jigsaw puzzle. Yeah.
Like the son's other hand, the one that's not hugging his mother, it looks like it's on the mother's heart or something. Does that represent something?
Yes. It's a very interesting observation. it is in a sense reaching out to the mother's heart. The hand here is so tiny you can hardly see it, but it is there. Another example of the Theotokos, Mother of God, and again, Meta, Theon, Jesus Christos, He who is. The same gesture, and you notice the hand here, all the same type. This is another example. It's not as well made as the ones we've been looking at, but it has exactly the same form. Now, we're going to look at the Tolga Mother of God. This one dates from the 1700s. It's another Eliusa type, and this one's reversed, but you can see the way the hand is coming around the neck. And if you notice the details of the draperies, the hands, and so on, they all tell you which icon this is. So here's another example of the Tolga Mother of God. It's not a really great one, but it shows the feature of the hand around the neck. And there's a close-up of it. And again, it's interesting that Mary is not looking at us. She's looking at the child. When you were a baby, when you were being held in your mother's arms, if you were at a party, or if you were traveling, if you were in company, did your mother ignore you and only look at other people, or did she look at you? She looked at you, didn't she?
No.
Yeah, because when you're a baby, the mother has to hold you, to look after you, to care for you. So again, this is one of the reasons that these icons are actually really interesting. They're very interesting to look at. Okay. Now, this is a very different one, the Corson Mother of God. The Corson Mother of God is an unusual icon because it only shows the very top part of the heads of the two major figures. But it's an important type. This one was made in Moscow, and it also has a booklet or metal cover. This is another example of it, and quite frankly, I had no idea what this was. I thought it was a damaged area. It's a scroll. So here we have two examples of the Corson Mother of God. Once again, Meta, Theon, Mother of God. Once again, we have the Jesus Christos. So we know who the figures are because of the abbreviations. Now, we're going to look at a type of icon which features the Bogorodica, Theotokos, or the Mother of God, but does not include the child. This is a very interesting one. We're going to look at icons of a type called orans or oranta. You do attend the Divine Liturgy, don't you? You do come to church on Sundays. Do you? If you did, and I hope you all will, sometimes you will see the priest standing at the altar like this. And the reason he's standing there is that this is a very old traditional pose for prayer. And we find praying figures with their hands raised like this in the Roman catacombs, in the very earliest examples of Christian art. Here is one of the figures here. And you notice it's not, I don't know, it's an attitude of prayer. Here's a close-up of it. And these are some of the earliest forms of what will eventually become a very important type of the Mother of God. How many of you have been to Kiev?
I was born.
You were born in Kiev. Very good. One thing that is really wonderful in Kiev is the great Cathedral Church of the Holy Wisdom, Santa Sophia. Sophia is a Greek word for wisdom. But you'll notice right here at the very top, there is Mary, Bogorodica, Theotokos or Theotokos, who is shown as an orant. Why is Mary standing here, up in the air in the back of the church, or the front of the church actually? Why is she there? Because she, yes?
Because like she's in, like people can't see her. It's like she's invisible. Like maybe she's right now like on top of us. Like, she's in.
That's a very interesting observation. Can you see angels around you? Do you see any angels in the air inside here? No. It's the same thing. They're invisible, but we believe they're there, even if we can't see them. The idea here is somewhat connected with that. But Mary is here because, as a mother, who did she give birth to? Yes, she gave birth to Jesus. Where do we find Jesus? in this church. Everywhere. If you celebrate the Divine Liturgy, if you come to the Eucharist, if you take the bread and wine of the Eucharist, then Jesus is here. And it's the idea that Mary is a symbol of the church. She represents the church. So we've already seen several different aspects of Mary. She's a much more complex character than you might imagine. So now we're going to go on to the next image. There she is. Ah! How do we know that this is Mary? How do we know it's not some imposter? Yes. How do we know?
She has the thing on her head.
Uh-huh. And what else does she have? Not only a halo, but you see here, those are the same letters. Meta Theon, the abbreviation for the Mother of God. So when you see those letters, you know, it's the Mother of God. Okay, next icon. Now, this is a Toronto church. This is the Church of Saints Peter and Paul. It's the Ukrainian Catholic Church in Scarborough. And you'll notice that here, above the Iconostasis and above the altar, we have a figure of Meta Theon, as the Mother of God, in the same way that she's shown in the cathedral in Kiev. And we can recognize her because she's standing like this. She has the abbreviation Meta Theon. That tells us who she is, and it's also important to remember she's the image of the church. Next one. Okay, this is one that I'm not going to show you very much of, just to remind you that there are many different types of the Mother of God. This one is Mary as Protectress. In German, she would be called Schutzmantel Madonna, which just means that she has a long scarf, which is to protect people, to cover people. And she's very often shown with this character here, and I don't need to tell you anything about him now. I'm going to leave that to you to discover for yourselves. But this is Romanus the Melodist, who was a very famous composer of music, of songs. And the story is that the Mother of God came to him in a dream, and that's why we often find the Mother of God of protection with Romanus the Melodist underneath. Okay. There's another example in which the long mantle or band of cloth is shown held above Mary's head. But you notice she still has the orange pose.
In Russian it is znamение.
It is znamenia. Znamenia, remember that term. Yes, I've actually put this down in the notes that I've given to the children. Now this is the great Panagia, or the Mother of God of the sign. The sign actually means that we see the child who is shown in a circle as if Mary is wearing a kind of medallion in front of her. So this is another special type. This one is from Yaroslava, but you notice again the Mother of God, Oranta, with the arms up, but with the image of the Christ child in front of her. This is a half-length version of it, and again, as you've already been told, znamenia. And we're actually going to finish with this, but this does not mean we're going to finish with the whole idea of icons. This is a half-length icon of the Mother of God on the side. It's Russian from about 1700. Ah, yes. Meta Theon, Mother of God. And here we have the child with the letters around his halo. You can't see them very well, but it's again that abbreviation for he who is. Now let's go on to the next one. This is where it gets to be really good. How many of you paint? How many of you draw? How many of you have ever tried wood carving? Oh, you've all tried wood carving. Very good. How do we make an icon? Well, an icon is normally made of wood. It can be made of other things, but wood is the normal material. And in Russia, you take a board with the grain running up and down like that, and you hollow out the center so that you leave a border. Greek icons are often flat, but the Russian ones normally are carved out in the center. There's a problem with wood, and you might have seen this in furniture in homes. Wood can bend, it can warp, it can crack. So to keep the wood from bending, to keep it from warping, and to keep it from cracking, Russian icons always have this feature. There are two braces, one put in on the left, one put in on the right, and that's to stabilize the wood. Now, today, we've gone back to the old Byzantine, the old ancient Greek way of making icons. But if you want to get a design Do you go to Google or do you go to a book? Yes?
Google?
Right. Now, this is a wonderful answer. Today you would go to Google, wouldn't you? Remember that when the first icons were being made, there was no paper. So what do you do to actually get the right design? When paper was invented, the designs were put onto paper and they were published as books that could be used by the people who make icons so that you get the idea, the composition right. And this is how we still make some icons today. We have a line drawing, and you place the drawing onto a layer of plaster called gesso. You have to cover that wooden board with plaster. Sometimes it's covered with cloth as well. And then you put the drawing on it, and you either trace the figure onto the plaster underneath, or you can actually punch holes in the border and rub charcoal over the drawing so that the charcoal goes through the holes. But this is what you end up with. You end up with a detail which has actually been cut into the plaster, and now we're going to start painting. This is an icon which is unfinished. This is an icon which is finished. So we have the drawing first, but we have to do some special things to it. And one of the things we have to do is to put gold on it. Why do we have gold backgrounds on icons? Yes?
Because like they're very rare.
Yeah, actually, that's a good answer. What were you going to say?
Maybe because it represents that the person on the icon is important.
Perfect. It's to emphasize that the icon is important. What do we see through the windows? We see daylight, right? We see the sunshine. Light is a symbol of a divine presence. And gold reflects light wonderfully. So gold is a reminder of light, of sunshine, of revelation. It's a reminder of many things, but they all relate to light. And here you can see that an icon has been covered in a red paint, and here the person who's making the icon is actually putting down very, very thin pieces of gold foil, and that's real gold. Next one. We're almost finished. Here is an iconographer at work, in this case using brushes, using all of the instruments that would be associated with whatever you do, and with watercolors or tempera or even oils. There is a tradition that the earliest icons of the Mother of God were made by St. Luke. Oh, by the way, what is the correct term for making an icon? Do we talk about painting an icon?
Writing.
Sorry?
Writing.
Oh, you're good. You're amazing. You are an absolutely extraordinary group of children. Yes, the actual process, the technique of making an icon is referred to as writing the icon. Why do we say we write an icon instead of we paint an icon? Why do we use the word write? Any ideas? Those of you who don't, yes?
I was guessing that maybe it's more that if you would say painting it, it would be that it's like a drawing, okay, but maybe writing would be referring more to like something more than just a painting. Like
You're right, you're on the right track. Where do we first encounter these people? Where do we first encounter Mary? In the Bible, right? Mary is mentioned in the Gospels. And the reason we talk about writing an icon is that the icon is always understood to be a visual version of what we find in the writings of the Bible, because they belong together. Icons, in a sense, are a very holy, very special pictorial form of writing. They're equivalent to the words that you find when you open a Bible. Okay, next icon. Next icon, in fact, is going to be here, that shows you our iconostasis, and shows you icons that were actually written by a man named Father Theotokos. So your iconostasis here is very, very important. Next image. But remember, if the icons are important, so are you, because you are supposed to be living icons of the living God. Remember that when you are in this place, you are loved and treasured. Do you know the story of St. Lawrence the deacon and the barbarian invaders in Rome? Rome was invaded by some very nasty people who said to Lawrence, who was a deacon, "We want the treasures of the church! Bring them to us!" tomorrow, right here. So what did Lawrence do? Lawrence showed up not with gold and jewels and treasure, but with his congregation. He showed up with people like you. And what happened? The barbarian said, "How dare you insult us? We told you to bring gold and silver and jewels. You brought these? What are these?" And Lawrence said, "These, my children, are the real treasures of the church. You are the real treasures of the church. And each and every one of you is to be regarded as a living icon of the living God." And by the way, you see how much fun this can be? When you actually get into the drama of it, this is why you should read your Bible. This is why you should study the icons of the saints. We have to stop now because there is a wedding which is taking place. So that's it. We'll see you again at another time, and we're going to look at more icons of the church. I've given you things that you can look at, and by the way, the black and white illustrations there are absolutely dreadful, and I did it deliberately. I wanted you to go to Google. I want you to go to your computers, type in Kazan, Mother of God, and see what you can find in terms of images. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
And I want to tell you thank you because you are treasure of our church.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'm so proud that you came to us and give our children your experience, your knowledge, and I think you're welcome to come again. And this is a small present for your nice job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, this is very kind of you. Remember, this is a treasure, and you know why it's a treasure? Because it's from you. It's a present from all of you. Bless you. You are a wonderful group. I love talking with you because you are attentive, you're smart, you're intelligent, you're well-read, and as far as I'm concerned, you are God's real angels right here on earth. Thank you again. And now I'm sure you want to leave. You have other things to do. Okay.